All right, so this is Chapter Smallpox, and it's story of smallpox and other deadly Eurasian germs. So Eurasian, this is Europe, Asia, kind of combined together. All right, let's get the question first. All right. So what's going to happen is the Europeans are going to travel to the Americas, and we'll go over that a little bit more in the notes. And what's going to happen is they're going to bring a bunch of stuff with them that is some good, some not good. And one of the things they bring is smallpox. And so what's going to happen is this situation. What percentage of the Native Americans were wiped from the Americas following the European invasion? So we obviously had tribes, right, in North America, Native American tribes. And when they come over, this is one reason you don't see a lot of Native Americans around anymore. Legit, because of a disease. All right. Let's see. So, much of the credit for European military success in the New World can be handed to the superiority of their weapons, their literary heritage, even the fact that they had unique load-bearing mammals like horses. There were no horses in North America until the explorers came over here. So they did not exist over here. These factors combined gave the conquistadors a massive advantage over the sophisticated civilizations of the Aztec and Inca empires. Conquistadors, we're going to go over in the notes. These are basically Spanish explorers, but they are also soldiers. So they're not just your everyday, oh, we're going to go over and see what's over here. They are going to conquer whatever land that they find, and that's where you get that conquistador, right? All right, but weapons alone can't account for the breathtaking speed with which the indigenous populations of the New World were completely wiped out. So indigenous means that that was the original people of that land. All right, within just a few generations, the continents of the Americas were virtually emptied of their native inhabitants. Some academics estimate that approximately 20 million people may have died in the years following the European invasion, up to 95% of the population of the Americas. That is almost everyone. That means 5%, that was it, that was left. All right, no medieval force, no matter how bloodthirsty, could have achieved such enormous levels of genocide. Instead, Europeans were aided by a deadly secret weapon they weren't even aware they were carrying: smallpox. All right, so let's go back down to that 95%. So question 1 is 95%. So all right. Let's see. Within a few days, large blank began to appear all over the victim's skin. Ulcers, pimples, holes, pustules. Oh. Sounds like a good time. Oh, goodness. No. Oh, all right. 95. You click one wrong thing. All right. Smallpox acted as a form of biological weapon. Smallpox is a viral infection that usually enters the body through the nose or throat. From here, the virus travels to the lungs, where it multiplies and spreads to the lymphatic system. Within a few days, large pustules begin to appear all over the victim's skin. It's lovely. Pustules are like giant blisters filled with pus. That's where you get the, we're there. So that one is pustules. All right. The total incubation period lasts blank days. at which point the patient will either have died or survived. So this is incubation, is the time period where the virus is active in the body. All right. Starting with the hands and face, and then spread. Wait. Starting with the hands and the face, and then spreading to cover the rest of the body. Each blister is packed full of smallpox DNA. If punctured, these blisters become highly infectious, projecting fresh smallpox particles into the air and onto surrounding surfaces, such as someone else's skin. It is a disease that requires close human contact to replicate and survive. So if you're sitting there and trying to help somebody, and of course they've never seen this thing before, then, you've got the caretakers around, these things start breaking apart, then the caretakers get sick, and it just keeps on going. All right. The total incubation period lasts 12 days. So that's our answer. At which point the patient will either have died or survived. But throughout that period, if gone unchecked, they may have passed the disease to an enormous number of people. But the disease requires close human contact to replicate and survive. Smallpox is a remarkably effective and remarkably stable infection. Research has shown that over the course of 10 years, as few as 3 individual bases may have changed in a strain's DNA. The disease found an effective formula thousands of years ago, and there's no reason to change it, basically. So we're talking not a lot of mutations is what that's talking about. So you're not going to get, it basically stays almost as it is. All right, so 12, number 3 is 12. All right. Smallpox was the product of thousands of years spent farming livestock, tobacco, corn, beans. All right. So where does this deadly disease come from, and why was it linked to the Europeans? For thousands of years, the people of Eurasia lived in close proximity to the largest variety of domesticated mammals in the world, eating, drinking, and breathing in the germs these animals bore. Over here, you can see. Over time, animal infections crossed species, evolving into new strains that became deadly to man. Diseases like smallpox, influenza, and measles were, in fact, the deadly inheritance of the Eurasian farming tradition, the product of thousands of years spent farming livestock. These epidemic Eurasian diseases flourished in dense communities and tended to explode in sudden, overwhelming spates of infection and death. Transmission via coughing, sneezing, and tactile infection, they wreaked devastation throughout Eurasian history, and in the era before antibiotics, thousands died. This is kind of like, also think Black Plague type level, All right, so this is, number 4 is livestock. All right. Now, number 5, the only large animal that the Native Americans had was the llama, giraffe, elephant, horse. All right. But not everyone. With each epidemic eruption, some people survived, acquiring antibodies and immunities, which they passed on to the next generation. Over time, the population of Europe gained an increased immunity, and the devastating impact of traditional infections decreased. Yet the people of the New World had no history of prior exposure to these germs. They farmed only one large mammal, the llama. There's your answer, llama. And even this was geographically isolated. The llama was never kept indoors, it wasn't milked, and only occasionally eaten. So the people of the New World were not troubled by a cross-species viral infection. When the Europeans arrived carrying germs that thrived in dense, semi-urban populations, the indigenous people of the Americas were effectively doomed. They had never experienced smallpox, measles, or flu before, and the viruses tore through the continent, killing an estimated 90% of Native Americans. Or 95, I guess. Smallpox is believed to have arrived in the Americas in 1520 on a Spanish ship sailing from Cuba, carried by an infected African slave. As soon as the party landed in Mexico, the infection began its deadly voyage through the continent. Even before the arrival of Pizarro, smallpox had already devastated the Inca Empire, killing the emperor. Ooh, I'm not even going to try. Yeah, and unleashing a bitter civil war that distracted and weakened his successor, Atahualpa. In the era of global conquest, which followed, European colonizers were assisted around the world by the germs which they carried. A 1713 smallpox epidemic in the Cape of Good Hope decimated the South African people, rendering them incapable of resisting the process of colonization. European germs also wreaked devastation on the Aboriginal communities of Australia and New Zealand. More victims of colonization were killed by Eurasian germs than by either the gun or sword, making germs the deadliest agent of conquest. I'm going to have to look up how to say these up here. So, the llama was your last one on here. And then let's hit submit. Make sure you hit submit. Don't be one of those people that was present in the meet and then didn't submit. It drives me crazy. Let me see how long this. Okay, so that's it for that chapter.